Mauri ora e te iwi, nau mai piri mai ki te pai. Welcome to the podcast where we get a few generations together and we talk about kaupapa Māori and sometimes specifically about Ngāi Tahu. Now when I say intergenerational, ko Stacey Morrison a hau.
Ko James Daniels a hau, ko te father of that one.
Yes, he is my father. Tēnā koutou katoa. I tēnei rā, we will be talking about the future of Ngāi Tahu. So we have two fantastic Ngāi Tahu. Anō ko auraki kei Koinei, tēnā kura, nau mai piri mai. And so I'll firstly introduce Corbin Te Aika. But if you're Ngāi Tahu, you know this guy, basically. He's as big as the pounamu around his neck. And a leader in kaupapa Māori in te tiriti o Waitangi. He ātio o tūranga mahi?
E tae ana te whakatō mai nei ngā kaupapa Māori, mātauranga Māori, ko te reo hoki, koiranga ngā momo mahi e ngā whānui ana ki au. Currently also teaching te reo at the University of Canterbury, which is a challenge at times, having to remind myself how to teach te reo to beginners and how to explain the different grammar points and how things work. But yeah, anything where I have the option or the ability to be able to embed mātauranga Māori, mātauranga Ngāi Tahu hoki, and strengthen relationships between all sorts of organisations really, but strengthen relationships at a mana whenua runanga kind of level.
Yeah, well, mana whenua o tēnei takiwa te poka pū o tautahi, big job as well to carry there. Engari, kei a koe hoki tētahi tūranga nui.
Yeah, also with us today is Awhina McGlinchey. Now, she's the Managing Director of Tōkona Te Raki and also co-leader for Mō Kauri Ngāi Tahu 2050. Now, talking about generations, 25 years ago, I was on Te Runanga o Ngāi Tahu, and we put together Ngāi Tahu 2025, the strategic document 25 years ago. Did we get to where we thought we were going to get to before we get into the next 25 years?
Before we get into the next 25 years. I think a lot changed. You designed Ngāi Tahu 2025 for a population of around 14,000 members. In the last 25 years, that's exploded to 90,000. So sort of kind of designing for 14,000 and then getting to 90,000, and that's 90,000 living across the globe.
So is that genuine, that we just had that population growth, not just people who identify as Ngāi Tahu? So we went from 14,000 to 90,000.
Members, members. So it went from a membership at the time. So just pre-settlement, we were about 5,000, mostly from our villages, mostly that were supporting our settlement work. Then sort of closer to settlement and around settlement, we got to 14,000. And 25 years later, the membership has exploded. So what we designed for and where we're at is a completely different picture. But I think the thing you did get right was really
Give you one tick.
No. It's hard to say because we didn't measure it along the way and things have changed. But one of the things that it really did give our people is hope. You know, it was the first time we were, as a people, able to dream about what we might be able to do, what we might be able to pass on to the next generation. And I think regardless of whether I can tell you exactly that you achieved what you set out to achieve, there's a really good foundation for Mō Kauri for the next 25 years. So, you know, there's a mihi to all of those that worked on that kaupapa.
Which I was actually a rangatahi rep, I think, at the time. Believe it or not, I was you.
Yeah. And I was younger.
You can't tell, you're looking great.
But the thing is, though, that number one, it wasn't just me, so there were a lot of other people involved, obviously. But also, I'm looking forward to seeing where you see us in 25 years with Mō Kauri Ngāi Tahu 2050s. But we're going to explore that over the next little while.
Ka pai.
He te pai. I guess I want to speak to something that's a little bit of a elephant in the room, but we're amongst friends here. That whole thing of identifying as Ngāi Tahu because it was related to the settlement, it's a peculiarity, I guess, of our iwi.
It's a reality too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've heard people sort of speak about, I think if you look at the positive side of it, there's a real pride in being Ngāi Tahu now, whether that's through the culture or all the other programs we've run across the last 25 years. I mean, one of the outcomes is a pride in being Ngāi Tahu, in being who we are, and whatever that connection point is, if we can increase that hononga with not only each other, but also our culture, sort of build that deeper, there's a real, the future's bright.
See, I didn't really have that kind of experience growing up because, my father's ex-military, so we moved around quite a lot and grew up knowing that I was always Ngāi Tahu, but didn't necessarily grow up with any sort of understanding of the claim or, it wasn't something that was necessarily spoken about. 80s.
This is
89.
outing him.
1989 I was born, so... and saying that though, it was something that was always kind of discussed amongst the wider kind of whānau.
Yeah. So 1989, both of you, can you tell us about the reality of what people were doing? Hahanga momo kōrero mo te kreme. How did we get there? How long did it take? What do you think people need to understand about that entire process?
Yeah, I'll out myself. I was 9 years old at the time, so this is why I'm the old person on the panel. But quite frankly, at the time, I don't remember. And for me, I was born in the Kakariki Valley, which is in the Manawatu up north, and I'm from up there. My dad decided to build a house truck after I was born, and we moved around in that house truck for a number of years. And he got to Moiraki, and he knew he had whakapapa there. So he pulled in, and that's where we've been ever since. Him and Mum are there now, and my brother are there now. So he reconnected himself to his whakapapa, got really heartily involved, and that was just sort of pre-settlement. He was the chair for most of that time, in the sort of transition time of all of that. And most of my life, I do remember growing up at Moiraki. That's where I kind of formed a lot of who I am and those things that I see about myself. My kids carry Ngāi Tahu place names, so that's where I find my real connection, but it doesn't sort of, I was born up north where my mum's from, so it's an interesting story, but I think reconnection is an important thing.
That is a generational thing that we talk about with this podcast. I'm very familiar with your father, Trevor, in the early days of Te Runanga. He's been a force. Yeah. And I didn't know that he got the house truck and ended up driving through Moiraki and go, I'm from here.
Yes.
Here we are.
House truck never left. Well, it did leave, just not with us in it.
Kia ora. So around that time, though, we talk about Charlie Cross, Tā Tipene O'Regan, and I guess, what do you remember what Papa was doing now, Papa Monty, in terms of when everyone was trying to get some momentum for the claim? Why are you making that face?
Because it's slightly embarrassing. Dad was a member of, I think, the Māori committee or something on Banks Peninsula, and we're from Wairewa, one of our Papatipi Runanga, but he was always involved politically, if you like, and he used to get into me about, why don't you come to this and why don't you come to that meeting? And my answer at the time, as a guy in his mid-teens on older, was, well, all you do is argue, because that's all I ever saw in those days. And this is amongst his whanaunga, let alone with the crown, or we hadn't got that far. So for me, I struggled with, what's the relevance, what's the point, and all of that sort of thing. It took me a while to grow up, to mature, and there are stories about how I got to where I got to, and I won't bore you with them right now. But that generation, I always saw that generation being my dad and Rick Toe and all of them and Tipene, they broke down the walls. They with the claim, they broke down the walls. Then when they stepped slightly to the side after they'd got the settlement or the heads of agreement, and then created Te Runanga o Ngāi Tahu, and then the likes of Mark Solomon and me and others, all the others, I felt that we were bridge builders, right? So they broke down the walls, we built the bridges to get involved with the Crown and with the commercial entities around. And then now I think we've moved on to the period where they're building up they're building off that foundation. So I'm not sure that I answered your question.
Well, I want to quickly say we don't mean to miss anybody out. Nō reira, mihi ana ki ngā rangatira katoa I tohe I te tohe.
Right.
It's really important to recognise every single
True.
person, and you will know watching who that is. And then it comes to you as a form of inheritance.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't necessarily... Yeah, I don't ever remember, like, discussing within my immediate family the claim until probably I was in my mid-teens, perhaps even kind of first year at university. But it was really through my desire to learn te reo Māori that I was exposed to Ngāi Tahu, for want of a better phrase. And through that, started to learn about the claim and a lot of history that I probably ought to have been exposed to as a younger child, but for whatever reason, that wasn't necessarily the reality for my parents, in terms of my upbringing at least. Dad joined up to the army when he was about 15, was a career soldier most of his life. My pākehā mum, she was the one that was always correcting my teachers at different primary schools and that on how to say my surname properly, and her little claim to fame in terms of te reo was she was one of Whaiti's first tauira at Aranui. And so mum was the one that kind of pushed the, you need to know that you're Māori, but actually you're Ngāi Tahu, you're from Heoi, and this is your kind of connection to place and space. But it was really through my te reo journey that I learned more about the claim, and then being fortunate enough to be one of Tā Tipane's students when he was still Assistant Vice-Chancellor Māori at UC. And hearing his first-hand accounts, not necessarily in terms of formal lectures or anything like that, but more often than not when he was having a smoke on his pipe.
Be careful what you say next.
But that was when you talk about Tipene and co being the ones to break down the barriers, but in some ways that was when Tipene was in his comfortable place. There were no barriers, and
I think that he was in his pomp, and I think that he enjoyed the battle, because I've heard some stories, and they've been verified as to how they got to that settlement with Doug Graham in the mix, and maybe the odd bottle of whiskey, and as you say, pipe, and all that sort of
phone
thing.
calls.
But I remember my father, who had a difficult relationship with Tipene. It was like, two bulls in a ring. But he always had respect for Tipene, and I remember him telling me, he said, there are MPs in Wellington that when Tipene walks down the corridor, they all duck into doorways. They don't want to be in front of him.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and I like to think of that image, and particularly my father being generous enough to think like that, because he was a hard man.
Yeah.
I think that was an important thing that our whānau had. We didn't always agree through that period, but we came into a room enough to move forward and get to that settlement space, and I think that's a real lesson we can take forward as we get into this sort of, there's this real polarisation. Young women and young men are less likely to agree with each other, all of those sorts of things. I hope that our young people can be inspired by, we don't have to all agree all of the time, but we do need to move forward together. So.
And before we talk about moving forward, we can't just speak about the claim without talking about the transgressions, the massive transgressions on Te Tiriti o Waitangi, so why we got to that place. What do you think the general understanding, you were talking about how you finally learnt about the claim, but also about Te Tiriti o Waitangi, now that you're working in university, what is the general level of understanding about, say, the Kemp purchase, or why it got to the point where we got, as was described today, the hubcap from the car that was stolen off us?
I don't think the general public know that much. And I think it's reflective of society in general in Aotearoa. We don't actually know our own history. And so I think we're actually quite lucky as Ngāi Tahu to have, 8 generations worth of, correspondence with the Crown, solicitors, even having an archives unit.
But also a whare ko te hapa o New Zealand.
Tika.
Yeah.
And, understanding that a lot of that history, a lot of that mamae, a lot of the transgressions by the Crown, they're actually not only in our cultural memory, but also in our physical kind of landscape. Like Te Apa o New Zealand, little things like our tipuna down at Little Hagley Park on the horses there. A lot of people don't know the history about Little Hagley Park, and that what's now Carlton's Corner was once known as Pilgrim's Corner, and because that was where Ngāi Tahu would camp out when they came into the city or early colonial settlement of Christchurch. And that piece of land was taken under the Public Works Act, I think it was, for the construction of an ammunitions factory prior to World War I, and has never actually officially been returned.
And look, there's no ammunition factory there, is there?
Exactly, it was never erected. And so little things like that, people don't know that history unless they've either have had lived experience of it, or in some cases, like myself, have had to go to university to learn about it, or hear about it through a whānanga where I'm, my legs are shaking because I'm there to learn te reo, but it's through whatever the activity is that I've picked up on those bits of history. And
so how are people going to learn that history? Because it is important that we understand that that's what happened and why we are where we are. How do they learn this? I've got an answer, by the way. I've asked a question I've got the answer to, but carry on.
Good listening. Okay.
I think there's a few ways or mechanisms in which we ought to be teaching that kind of history and disseminating it, but at the same time, that can be a little bit problematic in terms of, mandate in terms of sharing that history, or, whose narrative is it to share, right? And because there are certain things that, I'm not too sure I'd want the general kind of population to know about in terms of some history, but at the same time, people should know the history of the landscape that they're on. And actually that's been one of the, particularly for us here in Christchurch, following the earthquakes, old Christchurch, you didn't see te reo anywhere around this city. You could walk down Colombo Street, which was kind of the main drag when I was a kid. You could see every foreign language of the world, usually advertising food. But there were two kind of markers of kaupapa Māori within the city, and it was Ricky Manuel's po at the back of the town hall, and his carving studio here at the Arts Centre. Yeah.
But you have some research, Awhi, that says that when you say te tiriti o Waitangi, sometimes it doesn't always open people's minds and hearts in Aotearoa.
Yeah, I think the main sort of part that come out of the research is that we left our Pākehā whānau, our immigrant whānau behind, so we need to go back and bring them with us. So, we've had a really turbulent time of late with the word te tiriti, all of those sorts of things. So how do we make it an inclusive space for other? And I agree with Corbin around you need kind of that layered approach to how you share history, because we need other to understand us. Who are we as Ngāi Tahu? We need to know that really well, but what do we want to be a part of? And to do that, we have to ensure that other understands us enough to ensure that we're a real part of what's moving forward. My daughter, who's 17 years old, she said that she can't build a just future a half-told story.
Yeah.
So she really advocates for, bringing back the histories in school kaupapa, all of those sorts of things. And I think there's an amount of our knowledge that we do need to share, but you're right, there's an amount that's for us, and we just have to be really clear about what that is. But I think the archives have done a good job of that with how there's the live layer and then there's the hidden layer. So I think we've got the capability to do that as an iwi. I think that's a superpower we've already kind of got. But I'm looking forward to your answer because you said you had it.
Well, if it's about disseminating the history, and I'm just aware that you can get history from all sorts of sources now, platforms. TikTok's a classic. I get feeds, but I'm looking at a lot of history from Europe and so on, and I find it very interesting. And I just wonder whether we would look into those sorts of platforms, because that's where a lot of people are going, even people of my age, and disseminating that history, our story, but we need to be on the front foot. That's, I guess, my point, because you could have anyone saying anything about us, and because it's online, it's the truth for a lot of people.
Say anything enough, it becomes the truth.
Yeah, you say it enough times and it becomes the truth. So I think that we need to control it, we need to manage it and get it out there, because I think the fact that we know what has happened is good, but we need other people to know what happened, and then I think we'll live a lot calmer lives, because of the ignorance, and I mean that in lots of senses of the word. Because of the ignorance, a lot of people are in this box over here, and they go, bloody Maoris, and we need to turn that around. I'll go back to what I was saying about my father. When the Heads of Agreement came out, it was announced, and I was in a gym in Christchurch, kind of a bougie one, I've got to say, and this rich businessman was at that gym, and we're in the changing rooms and so on, and he said, you'll be happy about Ngāi Tahu signing the Heads of Agreement. And I went, did they? I didn't even know. This is about 1996. And he goes, yeah. And so I rang Dad on the way when I was walking back to my place, and I had an early cell phone.
Yeah, that's early.
And I said, hey, I hear you've signed the Heads of Agreement. And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, that's great. And he goes, well, it's okay. It's not enough, but anyway. And I said, you know what you should do now? This is me telling him. I said, you need to tell the story as to why this has happened, not that it has happened. And he said, no, they can bleep, 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 bleep. And I said, he said, why would we do that? And I said, because your moko will be, getting it in the neck and later on in his life when they don't understand what happened. And I don't think it has been told properly or fully enough for people to understand. That's why we have some of this black and white.
Yeah, because all they know is the settlement, so much money, 170 million.
Or whatever they see on media.
Yeah.
It's quite often can actually be misinformation.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I think that's an important thing, the story. People could sort of talk about as a future piece of what we need is to know our data, but I think beyond our data we need to understand our story and the narrative that data is saying and how it can help us be more be more uniquely Ngāi Tahu.
And I think there's an opportunity as well to activate the aroha of people, because when we do te tiriti training, the look in people's eyes where they go, I am someone who's done pretty well for myself, I'm an executive, how come I don't know this? Yeah. How can I grow up in New Zealand and not know this? And they feel embarrassed, and so it actually blocks their learning because they are feeling uncomfortable. And I think we all have complicated histories, marriages, whether they be from different iwi, Māori and the Crown, that's a marriage, and those things are complicated, but there's an opportunity because out of it, we actually had an incredible document, an incredible agreement that was full of hope and was full of opportunity. So speaking of which, when we talk about, where we are, I'd love to look into the planning of where we are now and how we're looking forward.
Where we are now. I think where we are now, we've gotten 25 years of a post-settlement, as a post-settlement iwi. We're the second in that journey. We're I think we're 176 years post Matiaha writing his letter. Which started our Te Kirimi. Well, it was one of the moments they say started Te Kirimi. The journey's been interesting, and I think about that time. Can you imagine what he was thinking of there when he sat down at the kaik at Moiraki and thought about what he was starting and where it would end up? And, you know, I think 150 years later, when you guys put out your hopes and dreams around Ngāi Tahu 2025, and I think we've achieved, you know, there's been a whole lot of success. There's been some lessons along the way. I think the success is our rangatahi having the more ability and reo than we ever did, more access to. And I was laughing earlier because Stacey and I started some kaupapa around reo together at the same time way back when, and her reels obviously progressed a whole lot more than mine. So the amount of effort you put into it, but then I'm watching Stacey and others all raising their tamariki with reo as their first language. That's amazing. I know that we spoke about the archives before, and our whānau are incredibly proud of the archives of our reo, of our whakapapa. So there's a whole lot of stuff that's advanced a really long way, and there's a lot more to be done as we carry on. Yeah, it's an endless game. I think we always think that we're at some finish line. There's no finish line. It's just another time to assess where we're at and what we want to do next and what we've got the resources to do next. So.
And again, aroha for each other, because, you know, there are reasons why I was able to do that.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
So not to go, okay, we should all do it like this, because surely mana motuhake starts with everybody being able to roll how they want to as Ngāi Tahu.
Yeah.
Correct, and I think touching on something Afi mentioned before, this last 25 years, there's been heaps of success, but it's almost like we've been collecting the resources for our own little toolbox, and we're only just starting to kind of realise how powerful those tools are within our toolbox. In terms of where we're at, in terms of the wealth of the tribe, that's a big number, but we've still got issues, you know, at a runanga level, at our kaik, at our marae, basic infrastructure, for example, where we're only just starting to be able to utilise those tools we've collected and built up over the last 25 years to actually create meaningful partnership with organisations like local councils and things to actually wield our mana. Our mana motuhake, our tino rangatiratanga, that was envisioned when our tipuna signed the treaty, but also why Te Ramorehu wrote his letter 176 years ago.
Yeah.
There's a long way to go. It's a complex thing to take people from where we were to the aspirations we have for our people when you look at all of those things, when you look at what we want from our pā, and multiple tensions, like where do you use those tools at any one time. You know, there's 18 pā, there's 90,000 Ngāi Tahu members.
And a huge, vast area of our takiwā.
The takiwā is the largest whenua of any iwi. You know, we're spread across this large space, and there's a lot to be done everywhere. So it's really about getting clear on what we can achieve at any one time. But I don't think it should stop us from having those aspirational dreams. Yeah.
And when it comes to making plans like that, Koropops, you were saying in 2000, there's some things that you go, I don't know how that's going to go, and then in the fullness of time you see, like for an example, ko tahi mano kaika, ko tahi mano wawata. It must have been hard to see then at that point what it could become, which is, you know, ko koe tētahi puawaitanga o taua kaupapa. You know, so that 25 years goes faster than we think, doesn't it?
Oh, hell, you'll find that as you get older, by the way. It goes much faster than you think it is. But, yeah, look, I don't want to focus on what we did back in the day, right? I'm really keen to see where you guys think we're going to be in 25 years' time, because I'm probably not going to be here for that, and I'd love to know what you see in the future, because that's what more kauri Ngāi Tahu 2050 is about. And so in 25 words or less,
No.
where are we?
Where are we going?
Yes.
Where are we, or where are we going?
I beg your pardon, yeah.
I think the pēhea that came out of all of the participatory research we did with our whānau throughout that kaupapa, we ended up with tūturu te noho, tūturu te hono, tūturu ake nei, which is beautiful, and it's all about our places, our practices, our connection, and that we are going to be intergenerational, and that's how we have to plan to move forward. So I think that's a real clue around it. I do think from the foundations we have, I think our reo is going to grow stronger. I think our connection to all of those things grow stronger. I think there's a renaissance, as you said, out in our regions, at our pā. There's some amazing stuff happening there where our young people don't have to just go to those boring meetings. They can go to some really amazing kaupapa around multiple, around histories, around waiata, around all of these things that they're interested in. Work opportunities. There's a whole heap of reasons for rangatahi to be at our pā that aren't around a meeting or trying to fight for something, but it's building those connections, and within those connections I think amazing things are going to happen. So it's about walking those tensions for the next few years to ensure, like I said, is it this or that? I think it's both, and how do we manage both all the way along and ensure that we get win-win situations for our kids going forward. And what I kind of love is Tātipini said that they were afforded some choices. We've been afforded more choices, and what we have to be doing is ensuring that our kids, when it's their turn to do 2075, that they've got more choice, that they've got more tools in their toolbox, that they've got their culture to give them courage, and that courage enables them to imagine what they want in their 25 years and what they're ensuring they're doing for those that come after us, because it's just an endless sort of connection through time.
Goodbye.
That was a very long 25
Sorry. I can't count.
Who's measuring? It's
Hey, hang on. I'm not good at counting. I'm top of my class in English.
What about innovations? What innovations would you love to see so that we get to this Hawaii Hall?
I think our climate is changing so rapidly, right? And we have these beautiful pūrākau, beautiful phrases and te reo associated with our taiao and our unique Ngāi Tahu taiao at that, right? And I think in terms of innovation, I think we've got a cohort of rangatahi that are culturally grounded and connected with one another, but champions, warriors actually, for our environment. And whether that's in terms of mahinga kai, and that's something that makes you
Hungry.
Ngāi Tahu through and through, right? We're a people that are known for our mahinga kai and the bounty of resources here within Te Waipounamu. And if we're not careful, we're going to lose some of those taonga species that are part of our mahinga kai activities. And, whitebait, for example, we need to ensure that we have taonga like that in our titi, moaki tonu atu. And I think we've got a generation coming through, they're almost like half a generation below me, right, where they're going to be game changers. They're culturally competent and grounded, but they can easily move between te ao Māori and te ao Pākehā, and they don't have any fear in terms of taking a position and fighting for what is right, which I think is something that I've in my own generation I can see that there's some of us that are a little bit more hesitant to go in guns blazing. But then in saying that, there are generations older than me that will quite happily go in guns blazing and will back that generation below me through and through. So 2050 is going to be an interesting time, but lots of innovation, lots of game changing, I think, and realising that tino rangatiratanga mana motu hake.
Goodbye. Do we have our iwi structures right in order to achieve that?
I would argue we don't, but I think the wheels are in motion on that front. We're starting to see a little bit of change in terms of discussions around devolution of authority and resource and things like that. We've got to remember we're working with a system that wasn't designed to support or enable us. In fact, we're fighting a system that I would argue over the last couple of years is actively trying to remove te tiriti o Waitangi.
Yeah, you're talking about the wider system.
Yeah, wider system.
New Zealand Inc.
And so our own structures, we've built those as a means to work alongside or trying to fit into a wider system, right?
Have an equivalent.
And so, you know, we have to have a runanga structure as a post-settlement iwi, post-settlement governance entity for the Crown to be able to settle with the tribe, right? Which isn't necessarily the best kind of structure or system that reflects the Ngāi Tahu population today, I think.
Did that come up in research?
Yeah, somewhat. I think people were more interested in the what than the how. I think there's a lot of disagreement around the how. There can be those that think that we've got the structure slightly wrong, those that believe we've got it right. I think, you know, in the 80s there was a royal commission that went round the PAE and interviewed some of our old people, and they sort of thought at the time that if we just made this one central thing, it would fix all of our problems, and that's somewhat what we went about doing. And now, like I said, there's a real renaissance out at our PAE, or at our runanga, as we say, and it's just, I think, about balancing that tension. It's like, how do we have mana motu hake on our PAE, and then how do we have kotahitanga as an iwi? And I think we need both of those things to be successful into the future. So it's about balancing that tension. I don't think it's about devolution or centralisation. I think it's how do you have both of those things working together. And I don't think we've necessarily cracked that yet. We're really good at knowing what we're against. So when we've got someone to fight, we're all together and we've all got each other.
Let's go.
We can unite.
Heoi.
And then sort of, you know, this post-settlement stuff, you get to a point where everything's kind of good and you're looking around for who you might want to have a little bit of a pushback against, and your cousin down the road might look like the person you're going to do it with.
Yeah, but that was the point of Te Ariki Nui Koinei Ngā whānui te pō as well. We don't always need to form kotahitanga in response to a fight. You know, what about being together every day and not choosing to have a scrap with your cousin? Maybe you just don't get to have a scrap.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, you've got to remember our whakapapa wasn't stopped at those boundaries that we had that were sort of formed into our settlement documents, and that, you know, our whakapapa crosses those rivers even if we've made these sort of hard boundaries around it. So it's better not to scrap your cousins. It's better.
Let's not forget that actually the boundary, there's no boundary. All those takiwa are centred on. That's what it talks about, which brings up that wonderful notion of arguing about the boundary, because it's not specified.
Oh, they love a good
defined.
argument over it, though.
Yeah.
And momo wā.
Yeah.
That is the problem. There's so much to do. We do have to look at what is the most effective use of our time. Yeah. And what is that? Like, are there ways that we can be more efficient in how we work together? And
how can we learn lessons off each other? How can we learn successes from each other? You know, what can we share with each other to make the journey a bit easier for our cousins down the road?
Well, that's the funny thing, is that they are your cousins. Your next door neighbours are your cousins.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that we go down that track of having fights with our cousins. I go, maybe we should just unite and have a good coming together of whanaungatanga, really, I suppose. But I find it really interesting. And not that I can talk, because, you know, on Te Pātaka or Rakai Hope,
loves a scrap.
Peninsula. Yep. It's on.
Well, that's the thing, though. Like, the theatre of it. Okay, find another way to get drama in your life, you know? Because I was actually at a summit around Māori agribusiness, and talking about the structure of land ownership is actually not been healthy or untoxic for us as people. You know, so there are there are ways that, we can change structurally, aren't there? So that we can actually be more agile and make, I guess, both, hapu and iwi and business decisions. So who gets to lead those kind of things? Corbin, looking at you. You're the rangatahi.
I'd like to think, as a rangatahi, I could actively participate in leading that sort of thing. But dare I say it, I believe there are some boundaries or barriers to me being able to actively pursue that, right? And whether that comes down, in some cases, purely to, dare I say, iwi politics, personality politics.
Kia ora.
But that doesn't necessarily mean I can't contribute to it in other ways, right? And so sometimes that could be just as simple as actually sitting down with somebody and having a conversation, just getting to know each other, right?
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, actually having conversations like this is
exactly.
why we're doing it.
And so, just yesterday I was having a chat with somebody who I've worked with in the past, but I've never actually sat down and shared kai with them or anything like that, right? And within that conversation yesterday, we gained a greater understanding for each other's experiences, skill set, and outlook on the world. And this person in particular, I actually thought they were the sort of person I wouldn't get along with in that sort of environment, yeah? Whereas just through those conversations we had yesterday, it was clear that actually we've got more alignment in terms of our views, our thinking, and sometimes it's just a matter of having the conversation. And sharing little bits of our history or little bits of our te reo, our experiences as Ngāi Tahu, with those that aren't, can be a game changer in terms of people in positions of power in, say, a council environment or some sort of local authority.
And koe mataku, I don't perceive this as you talking about yourself as at an ego level. It's about you kind of represent a whole lot of your generation who've experienced this.
And this is just my narrative, right? It's not necessarily like I've got the mandate to speak on behalf of the marae or whatever, but sometimes it's through those conversations that you can actually see that those people you're conversing with, they click. You can see the cogs turning in their head in terms of, okay, well, actually, when I get back to the office, I'm going to remember something that Corbin said, and that might change my the way in which I go about this particular issue.
And Awhi, isn't it also that we just all want to be recognised for our love of our iwi and that we've done things from that place for our love for our people. And whether it's been right or not or anyone wants to judge it, I think people just like to be recognised that they love their people.
Yeah, they love their people. What can they contribute? What have they contributed? Those are those, I think that's the way that we can all see that we have a part to play because, a structure itself can't reach the goals of our people. So we all have a part to play. We can all contribute to this future that we want for our kids, for our moko, and for all of those that come after us. So.
Hey, I'll give you a sense of the future because I've seen it over the last 25 plus years, okay? And I won't mention names, but there is...
We'll all know who you're talking about.
No, there's someone that I deal with on a Papatipu Runanga level, right? And she is the boss of me. Yep. And she used to be this snotty-nosed kid who used to come to Runanga meetings back in the day. And I've seen her grow over the years and didn't think that she'd end up in a position where she tells me what to do, but that's what's happened. And it's a lovely thing. It really is. I mean, she may see this and think, oh, that's me. And I wasn't a snotty-nosed kid. And I go, yeah, you were.
Hoi anō, he aroha kei roto I au kōrero.
Okay. But that's actually a lovely thing. As I hope you'll get to that stage where you see that, and you may have experienced that already. But given the age and the life that I've lived, it's really cool.
Yeah.
And I know you've passed the baton on to snotty-nosed kids.
Get to be the cheerleader after that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, look,
Yeah.
I've complimented her on a number of occasions because she's just different to what I thought she was going to be.
Yeah,
But you've got to let people transform and let our iwi transform. I've seen that in another cousin of mine. Because of our kaupapa reo, they've made transformational change for them and for their whānau as well. And actually, ultimately, for our pai and for our pā. So we are achieving transformation, and we probably need to recognise that as well. What could other transformations look like? Is it about where we live, about where we work? Do you have to be in the rohe, for instance?
Well, I mean, only not even 50% of us live in our own takiwā, so I think the answer to that is no. How can you be Ngāi Tahu no matter where you live? How can you connect to that part of who you are? But also, when you connect back, how can you connect back beyond an organisation of those sorts of things and truly connect to your whenua, to your whakapapa, all of those sorts of things. I think the future looks incredibly different for our young people. The advancement, we've already talked about climate change, the advancement of technology, if you think about AI, those sorts of things. The things that our young people are going to have to navigate as they continue to create our Ngāi Tahu world, it's going to be a challenge for them, but when I look around at our young people, I think, geez, they're going to be all right. Like, there's amazing young people out there, and sometimes you just got to get out of the way, and I really hope I'm out of the way by the time the next sort of 25-year aspirations are collected. I just want to be one of those old crazy people that they come and interview.
Why are you looking at me?
And we might wrap it up there. Great idea as well. Guess Who, the Ngāi Tahu edition. I think it will go very well. But just to finish us off, finish this sentence for me. You know your Ngāi Tahu when?
You have delicacies like titi, tuna, whitebait.
On the daily. I didn't even know how much kota costs. No idea.
Yeah, true that.
Yeah, when one of the answers to your questions is we need to get all our kids to marry their cousins, apparently, is the way forward for Ngāi Tahu, according to some of our older ones.
I'm here for Tomo. You know your Ngāi Tahu when?
You know your Ngāi Tahu when some of your first cousins look like pākehā.
Okay, wow. Yep.
That's true though.
Well, not to me. I don't think they do.
I think I've actually got
That's me.
another one that when it's a struggle to figure out which piece of pounamu you might put on.
Oh, ka roha. You know your Ngāi Tahu when you've been in Te Karaka. All of us. And the future looks bright. Tēnā rā koutou katoa. This has been Te Pai. Auraki matatsu.
Kia ora.